This is Marimbalogy. My name is Charlie, and today we have an analysis of Etude number 1 by Paul Smadbeck. This is coming to us from Daniel Gomez from Costa Rica. Thank you so much, Daniel, for sending this in. It takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there on the internet, so I hope my comments are useful to you and we can all benefit from the great things that you're doing. If you would like your video featured on the show, you can send me a YouTube link, a Dropbox link, or Google Drive link to marimbalogy@gmail.com. Before we start, a big thanks to all the subscribers to the show. If you would like to support us, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or support us through Patreon. I'll have a link for both of those things in the description below. Let's get started. Warning, this section contains opinions. You may have different opinions, and that is okay. I encourage healthy discussion in the comments below. Pause. Are you in my studio? Did you break into my studio? We have like the exact same sound absorption panels. That's crazy. Did you make those? I made those last summer. We probably watched the same YouTube video tutorial. Okay, for real. Okay, so good intro. You have really good rotations with your strokes, and that is hard to do with Burton grip. I see you're using kind of the modification a lot of us do, where you open up your finger and thumb a little bit and turn slightly sideways, and that gives you really good rotations. You're doing a really good job of that. It's very even. Now, that whole section, if you look at the music, it goes from 3 Ps to 2 Fs. That is a huge dynamic range. And I feel like your accents totally did that. But the rest of the notes didn't do too much. I think you could have given the inside notes, the non-accented notes, a little bit more dynamic push also. You may need to alter your playing zones to get enough power with the double lateral, because it's on a G and an A. It's a little hard to do that, so you may need to separate them out a little bit to get enough power. But I felt like they could have crescendoed also. Okay. So lots of good things going on here. First of all, you're keeping the pulse really, really well. This is kind of a weird time signature. Let me pull this up. Yeah, this piece doesn't really have a time signature, so the number of beats in each bar kind of changes from bar to bar. But you're doing a really good job of accenting these the way that they are grouped, which in this section is 4-3-3. Now, if you look really closely at the music here, he has accents on mallet 3. But if you listen to the composer himself play this piece, he doesn't actually do those accents. He does what you're doing and just keeps the 4-3-3 pulse with his accents. So I think that's really interesting. I think the reason why he did this is because a lot of times when we have a lot of lateral strokes, our outside mallet tends to be really loud and the inside mallet can get lost. So I think he put the accents here for us to just keep in mind to not let that get lost, but not necessarily that it needs to have the same weight as the 3-3 grouping. So I think you did a great job of that, which is really awesome. Now, at the very, very end, when you had your roll, mallet 1 was sliding between 2 different notes. So something you can do there is realize that in that range of the marimba, you can shrink or expand your interval by like 2 inches and still hit the same notes. So you can really close that down a little more than what you think you should, and it will totally help with the note accuracy there. Okay, once again, your laterals with Burton grip are awesome. Super, super good. You had a really good sweep up the keyboard. You had a nice dynamic push. I like that you attacked the roll with all 4 notes and then started rolling. I just really like that style for starting a fortissimo roll. That was great. You're still having no accuracy issues with mallet 1. It slid around a couple times in that roll also. That's something to take a look at. Another strategy you could use there is we tend to get like locked into always looking at mallet 2 and 3 all the time. And we kind of feel mallet 1 and 4, but we don't usually look at mallet 1 and 4. So something that you could do is when you hit this roll, intentionally try to look at mallet 1. It's going to feel weird at first because you're going to be very used to looking in the middle, but try to feel mallets 2, 3, and 4 and look at mallet 1 and just see where it is, because it is right on the edge of the left side of the bar, and it keeps sneaking down to the next note. Daniel. Okay, things were going really well. The main melody there, you did a great job of voicing the melody and getting around the keyboard. Your playing zones were super good. That was awesome. I like the little ritardando at the end of some of the phrases. That was really tastefully done. It wasn't too much. It was very, very tasteful. Then we get to this last measure, and it just everything exploded. Okay, let's take a look at that measure. Okay, so if you look here, the left hand is the one that is accented. It is fortissimo, but the left hand is supposed to have the weight. And when you played it, your outside right mallet 4, was so heavy. It kind of like took over the entire measure, and we couldn't hear that left hand descending down the keyboard. One way that you could practice this is that you can just do this rhythm, but on like C, E, G, and get it really, really solid and make sure that the heights are good and the rotations are good. Another thing you could do is practice a little bit more with a metronome and start really slow and gradually speed it up so that it sounds just the way that you want it. It does say loco, and I think you're trying to push it really fast, and that's fine, but the note relationships still need to be good, and we still need to hear that left hand a little bit louder than the right. It's a really good mallet selection here. Good choice. You're getting articulation on the loud stuff, but you're also getting really nice rolls. Good use of dynamics. Nice job. We're losing it. We're losing it. Okay, things are going so well. You had really good intensity coming into this section. Your rotations, once again, with Burton Grip are so good. They're so clean. And all that was good. And then we get to this measure, and the tempo just went completely out the window. Like all of our intensity kind of grinded to a halt. So listening to you play this last section and listening to that other measure before that we talked about leads me to believe that you are not practicing enough with the metronome. Surely there are ways to abuse the metronome and use too much metronome, but it doesn't sound like you've quite used it enough. Now, granted, this piece doesn't have a set time signature, but you can put a metronome fast enough that it's clicking 8th notes or 16th notes, so it can still keep your pulse when you're learning something that's kind of rhythmically weird like this. But I think you definitely could have used a bit more metronome. Otherwise, I don't think this whole section would have had so much tempo variance that it had. One thing I like to do is play the 5x5 metronome game. So you take a passage like this one, and you put your metronome on like way slower than you think you should. For example, I think the tempo here is 140 for a lot of the song. So you can put the metronome on like 80 or 90 and play a passage of the music, and you can't speed it up until you get it right 5 times in a row, like perfectly 5 times in a row. So if you played it and it's absolutely perfect, you go to 1. If you play it again and you miss a note, you go back to 0. And you do this until it's perfect 5 times in a row. And it has to be absolutely perfect. If you get to rep number 4 and you slightly hit a different note than you're supposed to, or a note pops out loud that's not supposed to be loud, you have to have the discipline to go back to 0. And then try it again until you get 5 times completely perfect. And when that happens, you increase the metronome by 5 beats a minute. Now, most people, when they practice, they'll do something wrong 9 times, and then they'll get it right on the 10th time, and they'll be like, all right, I learned it, time to move on. But you don't want to fall into that trap, because if you think about it statistically, you now have a 10% chance in performance of playing that measure correctly. And it's really less than that, because you might be playing on a different marimba in a different space in front of a lot of people who are looking at you. So it's really much less than a 10% chance that you're going to do this correctly. So I like the 5x5 game because it forces you to make sure that it is consistently right and is consistently sounding the way that you want it to sound. So I think you should totally slow this down and apply that to this section and the last section that we paused for. Let's back up a little. Okay, yeah, actually, the whole rest of the piece after that measure really lost a lot of its intensity. Like you had a really good feel and a really good on the front edge of the tempo feel going, and then you hit the last measure that I paused for, and from there to the end of the piece, not only was the tempo much slower, but your dynamics kind of like subdued a little bit, and it didn't really sound like the piece ended when it was supposed to end. Like all the excitement just kind of died down. Now I really like how on all of your rolls you're attacking and then rolling. So here at the end with the inner mallet roll, that sounded really good. If you notice, your very last stroke hit the wrong note, which, you know, we're all going to hit wrong notes when we play, but you don't want to hit that one wrong because it's the second to last note of the piece. You want that one to be really accurate. And this is a pretty common thing on marimba. When you're doing something and you have a huge leap to the other part of the instrument, it's really tempting for the mallets to hit a couple notes on the way down instead of finishing and then jumping. So that's what happened here. So just be really careful about that and try to be really disciplined about making sure that last stroke connects before moving. So you have a lot of really good things going for you. Your technique looks really good. You're very relaxed when you play. Your double laterals, for the most part, are very even. The playing zones are good. I'd say my 2 biggest criticisms, well, really just one criticism. I think you could use the metronome way more effectively to help with your feeling, your interpretation, and to help keep the energy and momentum going. Yes, you can wean yourself off the metronome, after things are pretty good, but it doesn't sound like you used one at all when you learned it. So I would definitely do that to keep everything more consistent. Another thing that was really fantastic is I really liked all of your rolls, both your inner mallet rolls and your 4 mallet rolls. You had really good speed. It was just about the perfect speed, and you would attack it and then roll it, which is really, really good. I much prefer hearing that than do-da-do-da-do-da. I like hearing the attack first and then roll. You did a really, really good job of that. Please keep us posted on your progress. And if you are not done learning this piece yet and you're still working on it, feel free to send me an updated video after you have worked out a few kinks. I would love to see it, and we would love to see the awesome things that you continue to do. Congratulations on an awesome performance, Daniel. I'm going to link this video in the description below so you can watch the full thing without me blabbing over top of it if you would like. The honorable mention for today's episode goes to Chris Punn from San Jose State University. He sent me a really awesome video of him playing Summer Tree House by Chad Floyd, and I'd actually never heard of this piece before. It's a piece for marimba and woodblock, but the woodblock is mounted on the marimba and one player plays both of them. It was really, really cool. So I've since looked up a couple different performances of this, and you just did such a good job. I don't have a whole lot to say about it or critique it, so I'll just link it so the viewers can go watch it. I'll say some of my favorite things is your expression was really good. The melody was always the most important thing. And you did such a good job of controlling the silence in your playing. A lot of people don't realize that rest can be musical too. And rest can have a big emotional impact if they're used effectively. And you did such a good job of like letting an idea finish and just kind of float for a little bit and then move on to the next idea. It's just really good. I really enjoyed the performance. So I'll link it below and everybody should go watch it because it's awesome. All right, everybody, that's it for today's episode. If you would like your video featured on the show, feel free to email it to me. I will have links for all of the things in today's episode in the description below. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and bells if you want some more of it. See you next time. Hey, on a side note, my last video, this was completely flipped over, and my wife commented on it and said that it's gonna bother all of the OCD people. So today I made extra sure to check the lab coat. We're good to go. I didn't turn on the screen recording. How much of a pain in the ass would it be to sync this up later? I think it would be easier to just re-record it. Okay.